Hello, welcome to the another episode of our study on Samson. This is the Samson Syndrome. We are basing this study off of this book, Samson Syndrome, by Mark Atterbury. But you don't need the book; you just need your Bible. This week, we're going to go through how strong men tend to use anger as a tool. This is something that really resonates with me writing this up because I used to do that quite a lot. So, our goals, what we're hoping to accomplish through this study today, is to show how Samson weaponized his anger for personal revenge. And we want to help each other distinguish between righteous anger and destructive anger. And we want to teach that strong men must submit their anger to God instead of using it as a weapon, and just to equip each other with practical ways to handle our anger through relying on God's strength. Recall that our mission statement for this whole study is that all men need to rely on God, not on their own strength, lest they fail in the mission that God has given them in life. So, gentlemen here, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your typical anger level when things don't go your way? What's one thing that reliably triggers your anger or grinds your gears?
I don't know. Typically, I'm kind of a laid back person as far as anger goes. Uh, doesn't take, it takes a lot for me to get angry, truly angry at anything. Um, and I tend to go with the flow and kind of wash out the anger issues. So anger does not really, is not really something that triggers uh, of reaction with me. When it does, I tend to be more than the sneaky Pete variety, come at you from side when you least expect it.
I'll remember that.
Yeah, noted. Jim, has it always been like that for you, or did you kind of grow into that?
And I come from a family of six kids, so I'm the middle one, so it's kind of you kind of roll with flow. So I kind of grown into it, but it's had its roots for quite a bit of time.
All right, well, Dan, you look like you were trying to sneak a bite of food, but we caught
Yeah, you know what really makes me angry is when people ask me questions while I'm eating. No, I was kidding.
you.
Um, the I've always been an angry person. I have done a lot to control it since becoming a Christian. Um, but uh, when I did my DNA thing, you know that thing they call the warrior genes, which really should be called I get angry easy genes. I have like three of the five. So maybe that explains it, but I've always had to do more to control it. But I also like a lot of times I'll seem angry and I'm not. And my daughter finally picked that out because she did something wrong and I was yelling at her. And then I had to stop to take care of something. She goes, "You're not even really angry." I'd say, well, okay, not really, but I have to be a dad. But I think with me, it takes me a long time to just finally give in to the anger, a really long time. But if I do, I have trouble shutting it off. And it takes a really long time for me to get over it, days, even weeks at times. So,
Yeah, I'm. That's interesting because I'm pretty much like the opposite. Like something. You know, much less these days, but in my misspent youth, I mean, I was definitely quick tempered. I always just thought, okay, well, my I apparently there's a thing as an Irish temper, and I'm Irish, so maybe that's just it's a genetic thing. But yeah, I mean any stupid thing could set me off, but it would be an acute snap of anger which would fade quickly. Typically that's how it would be. But I would say if I was gonna say something that reliably triggers my anger, I guess it's like tough to control is like stupid driving. Like I'm not to the point I'm not running people off the road, but boy, man, when people are just doing silly things, especially because I mean you're driving like a 3,000 pound battering ram. Like stop being silly.
Yeah.
But I mean it's crazy some of the things you see out on the road. So, but again, that's something, especially since I've come to know God and started studying the Word. It's really tempered all that for me. And I now if I lose my temper, like I'm immediately like, whoa, what am I doing? Like where is this coming from? And I can tamp it down really quick. But it wasn't always like that for me. So
I don't generally get angry quick. I'm a slow burn.
yeah, I'm just the opposite. I'm quick and then I burn out quick. So last week we saw Samson overestimate his own cleverness with the riddle, and it exploded in his face. And this week we're going to watch his anger take center stage. Strong men don't just get angry. A lot of times they'll use that anger as a tool for revenge, control, or intimidation, or other things. Well, let's jump right into it. I'm going to read Judges 15, 1-8. Let's see. Jim, could you be ready with Ephesians 4, verses 26 and 27? And Dan, if you could have James 1, 19-20 ready. Okay, so after a while, in the time of wheat harvest, it happened that Samson visited his wife with a young goat. And he said, "Let me go into my wife, into her room." But her father would not permit him to go in. Her father said, "I really thought that you thoroughly hated her. Therefore, I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister better than she? Please take her instead." And Samson said to them, "This time I shall be blameless regarding the Philistines if I harm them." Then Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and he took torches, turned the foxes tail to tail, and put a torch between each pair of tails. When he had set the torches on fire, he let the foxes go into the standing grain of the Philistines, and burned up both the shocks and the standing grain, as well as the vineyards and olive groves. Then the Philistines said, "Who has done this?" And they answered, "Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife and given her to his companion." So the Philistines came up and burned her and her father with fire. Samson said to them, "Since you would do a thing like this, I will surely take revenge on you, and after that I will cease." So he attacked them hip and thigh with a great slaughter, and he went down and dwelt in the cleft of the rock of Etam. So Samson returns to claim his wife, and only to discover that her father gave her to another man. Let's see. And then in verse 2, "I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister better than she? Please take her instead." So the father denied Samson entry and also offered his other daughter, which, seems like a weird way to make amends. Like, "Oh, sorry, I gave your wife to somebody else, but take this other woman instead." So that's super against the Mosaic law. So it's actually a huge insult. It's a huge insult what he's doing there to Samson. And Samson said to them, "This time I shall be blameless regarding the Philistines if I harm them." So that's verse 3, and that's where he's kind of taking accountability, if you like, for slaughtering 30 guys in the last during the riddle ordeal.
It doesn't sound like he's taking accountability. It sounds like he's pushing the blame on somebody else.
Yeah. Well, well, this time I shall be blameless regarding the Philistines if I harm them. So, it's like he's like, I'm about to do a lot of violence, and it's your fault this time, but last time that was my bad, you know.
Does being very strong and not having consequences against you for doing things allow you to express your anger more? Like, like for instance, if I get mad at some guy on the street, I might yell at him, right? Well, I probably would. He'd have to really anger me over a period of days. But but if I get mad at a police officer, do I go into the station and start screaming at the police officer all the dangerous things I'm going to do if they don't, no, you get arrested. Well, I don't think Samsung didn't seem to have anybody who was going to hold him accountable.
No. No, and I mean,
The, the question comes down to who is ultimately responsibility is it for your actions? If I do something, at what point am I not responsible for my actions? And
That's what,
and the
yeah,
bottom line is anything I do personally, I personally am responsible for taking action. And consequently, any punishment or retaliation for my actions is my responsibility or the direct result of my actions and my responsibilities.
exactly. And he doesn't have any, he doesn't take or feel that he has any responsibility. He does whatever he wants.
yeah. Well, I mean, and some of that could be, I mean, this is the period of judges. So this is, Samson knows he's under Nazarite vow. Samson knows that his strength is from the Lord, that the Spirit comes upon him and he has these great feats of strength. So maybe he's got, thinks that he's backed by God and he can just do no wrong. I mean, why else would this guy be just violating vow after vow? And then just going here, running amok. I mean, he made a riddle for no reason, and then when he got swindled out of the answer, killed 30 people to give their clothes to their cousins. Just a wild guy, absolutely wild guy. Um, so Samson returns to claim his wife, discovers that the dad gave her to another man. Instead of pausing or seeking God during this whole thing, Samson just like explodes in rage, and you go from verse 3, this time I shall be blameless regarding the Philistines if I harm them. Next verse, then Samson went and caught 300 foxes. I mean, bam! Like he's just like he's on a mission, And the fox thing, I believe in some translations it actually is it's more like a jackal than like what we like a modern fox that we see around America, which hang out in packs and are not like a solitary fox. But it would be quite a feat to gather 300 of them for anybody, especially if he didn't have a bunch of help doing it, and tie what would be essentially slow burning matches between their tails. So Samson was quick to anger here, but he also held on to that because there's no way he didn't just 5 minutes later come back with 300 jackals or foxes. He must have been smoldering, putting all this together, planning this out. I'm going to take my revenge. I'm going to set all this up.
He, he's got was this an idea he already had in his head? I mean, this is just so like out of the blue.
Yeah.
I'm going to tie torches to jackals, or is this something that he had heard somebody else do one time? Just kind of a weird thing to pull out from the left field.
It is, but at the same time, like you got to understand, like this in the first verse, after a while in the time of wheat harvest. So this was at harvest time, So like it wasn't just like he went and burned some stuff down. Like they had been, working away in these fields, planting, growing, cultivating, mending, and tending these crops. And right before they're about to be harvested and they can get ready, to hunker down for winter or whatever and just get through and enjoy this harvest, here comes 300 foxes, paired up with torches between their tails, just burns everything,
Yeah, it's not the most. Yeah, it's not a weird story at all. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so massive destruction, really driven by personal revenge on the part of Samson. And I think I have a note here. I think it's interesting that in last week we were talking about how the wedding party, the groomsmen that were the Philistine groomsmen who Samson posed the riddle to, they threatened his wife to burn her and her father in their house if she didn't extract the answer of the riddle from Samson. And so she betrayed Samson, her husband, to get the answer to this riddle for the people that were threatening her. And what do? As soon as this happens, they do exactly what this woman betrayed Samson to try to avoid. They go and burn her and her father in their house. I just think that's interesting.
And why? Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Why was Samson angry? Right? Was he angry because of his wife and what it would have been done, or was he angry because this was a mark on his own pride?
Well, I mean,
It doesn't really say, but
like I said, it was definitely an insult for the father to say, "No, you can't see my daughter, whom you have married. Why don't you take my other daughter instead?" This is a big insult to Samson by doing that. But at the same time, like it just seems like it's this ever escalating tit for tat with Samson. Eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. It's just this way, this way, this way. It just keeps ramping up and escalating throughout the whole story. So strong men. So the whole idea of this study is strong men using anger as a tool. So some suggestions on why strong men would use anger as a tool is that it makes them feel powerful and in control. It gets results, at least in short term, or we can justify it that, they deserve it, or I've been wronged, I've been insulted. I know secondly, it gets results. That was a big thing for me. And I mentioned that in this sermon this past weekend. But I would, get frustrated working on a car or working on something, doing something, and then I would get real mad and start cussing at it and carrying on. And then I would, that burst of energy from being mad, I'd be able to break a rusty bolt loose or something on a car I'm working on, and so it's this risk reward thing where you see that this has worked. You've gotten mad and you've gotten a result out of it, and it's easy for that to become your tool. Now, any situation you find yourself in, it's like, well, it worked before on that bolt. Maybe if I just get really hopping mad right now, I'll be able to get, a result from whatever the situation I find myself in is, and what I think, at least in my case, and what I always, I don't know where this saying came from, but when you're holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and so when you have this tool of anger and you know that you can get things done with it, you can do sometimes even superhuman things, like get real mad at something. I mean, you can get a burst of strength and get something done. But when you use that too much, you start using that tool all the time in very inappropriate situations, which can really hurt you and hurt the relationships that you have with people around you. So, I mean, and righteous anger, right? Righteous anger does exist. Jesus flipping tables, God's wrath. I mean, it's a real thing. Like, there's a reason for anger, and there is a righteous anger. But most of our anger is very selfish. And God calls us to be slow to anger and quick to listen. And it's uncontrolled anger that I think we'll get into a verse on that. But uncontrolled anger gives the devil a foothold and destroys this very mission that God has given us as men to be husbands and fathers and leaders. The answer is never to. The answer isn't to just never be angry. That's impossible, and I think that's well understood. Going through and just trying to look for like verses pertaining to anger is a extremely common theme throughout the entire scripture, from beginning to end. So the whole idea is that God knows that it's baked into us to some degree, to varying degrees. Because Jim said he's cool as a cucumber, and Dan and I have opposite versions of it. I can be acutely angry and then forgive very quickly, and then it can be the other way, and Dan can be a smoldering kind of anger. But it's all kinds, and that's just kind of how we are, and it's typically not righteous. It's definitely doesn't have anything to do with the way God can be righteously angry at something. But instead of trying to just not be angry, we just need to submit to God and respond in God's strength in these situations. Is to pause and say, before, as we're feeling that coming on, and saying, all right, let's go to God here. So, all right, Ephesians 4:26-27. Who did I give that to?
The whole camera shook when you did that.
Yeah.
Ephesians 4:26 to 20. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on the cause of your anger. Do not give the devil an opportunity.
Yeah. Do not let the sun go down in your anger. Man, that's something. That's a piece of wisdom, a biblical wisdom that I had long before I seriously read a Bible. That's extremely wise. It's about,
that'll be one I struggle with. But what I try to remember is always in my head when I'm getting angry, in your anger, do not sin.
Yeah.
That part of it.
And notice like how Paul starts that off, in your anger, do not sin. So it's understood that there will be anger. Like there's no way, it's not saying don't be angry or you'll sin. In your anger, do not sin. So it's understood that it's going to happen. It's just that, we got to control that thing.
So you don't want to make it an excuse to do whatever you want that's wrong, like, I don't know, Samson did.
Right, exactly, yeah. And tie, 300 jackals together. Okay, James 1, verses 19 and 20.
You know this, my beloved brothers and sisters. Now, everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For a man's anger does not bring about the righteousness of God. I don't think it says and sisters in the original translation. I'm seeing a note here. I think it's implied, though. But be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger, for a man's anger does not bring about the righteousness of God.
Right. So, and that's the whole, that's just another example of how holy God is, how God is just totally set apart from humans and from the human condition and all the things that, this sinful flesh that we're dealing with, that we're living in. Our human anger just is not like God's anger, and it just simply can't be. Let me see. Jim, could you be ready with Proverbs 15, verse 1, and Dan, Ecclesiastes 7, verse 9? Those are just quick ones, but I'm going to read Proverbs 14, verse 29.
Ecclesiastes what?
7, verse 9. Okay, so Proverbs 14, verse 29 says, "He who is slow to wrath has great understanding, but he who is impulsive exalts folly." So, and I think, certainly in my case, I feel like with age is, I don't want to say like with age comes wisdom, because the beginning of wisdom is realizing you don't know anything. So I guess I don't know where that puts me. if I feel like I'm getting older and I've got some kind of wisdom, maybe it just means I'm starting at you know first base here at this point, and I've just got in the game. But I definitely have become slow to anger over time, and I think these days it really takes it would really take a lot, and even then it would be like I can't even imagine uh, violence if I witnessed a friend or family member or something, but I don't even know if that would qualify as anger, to go to defend something like that. That's the only thing I could think of that I don't think I'd have any control if I saw a friend or something be attacked by somebody. I wouldn't be able to hold back, but I also wouldn't just be yelling at them like, hey, that's knock that off, that's bad. And, it would be a totally different level.
I always have a weird reaction to violence. Uh,
Yeah.
it's a stronger reaction if it's somebody that I know or love, but even people that I don't know, if they're getting treated violently, I tend to have, I tend to, I don't know why this happens to me. I don't know if it happens to anybody else. When I get really, maybe it's because I trained a lot in martial arts, how to fight, how to control my emotions when I'm fighting. But as soon as I see myself I'm in a fighting situation, I get very quiet. And for some reason, my emotion level just goes away, and I'm ready, and I'm looking at the details of everything, and I'm ready. Um, Maybe that's just a military thing, Jim, eh?
The military has a definite impact on the training, the martial arts training also impacts that. But it dovetails into the Proverbs 15:1. A gentle response turns away anger. Harsh words stirs up wrath.
Mm-hmm.
It the response that you do. The Bible says that you're going to be angry. How you respond to anger definitely impacts the response to your response to anger. So if you can control your response in your anger, you have a more control over the situation as a whole.
Yeah.
If Samson went to his father-in-law and says, I want to see my wife, instead of barging in, it might be different. But if Samson, and this is behind the scenes of just me theorizing, Samson should have dumped his wife to begin with and not gone back to his father-in-law and says, I want to see my wife. His anger in the issue,
Yeah.
his anger in the issue triggered a response that was uncontrollable and was uncalled for. So it's just a chain reaction causing increased violence in response to the previous response. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, I think we can all know from our own lives experience that like anger begets anger. If you can diffuse a situation that's getting towards that point where people are getting angry on both sides. If somebody can just remain calm, not to the point like I don't know. I guess there's a flip side of that. If somebody's really angry and somebody is like extremely calm, like mockingly calm, that could go the other way too. That could push you over the edge. But being in control of the response if you're faced with anger, or you feel it coming up, and that's I mean that's a skill that's fruit of the spirit.
And it's also a skill that's very hard to acquire because most of us, when we get angry, lose all control of that type of control of the situation.
Yeah.
I got someone at the front door. Give me one moment. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I think the I don't know, anger is it's a tough thing. It affects us all a little bit differently, but the response is you're absolutely right. I mean, who among us has not damaged some relationship in our life by careless words said in anger? I mean, I know I have for sure, and something I prayed about, and something I think I've definitely gotten better at with age because it's not healthy. It's not a good thing to have to go around with this kind of it's not really it's kind of a chip on your shoulder, but it turns inward. When you walk around with this anger at all times, it starts destroying you from the inside. I think.
When I was young, I was always angry, and I did use it as a tool, I guess, to keep myself motivated. But I always was always angry about something, and maybe that's why I don't get over it as much because I'm used to keeping it.
Yeah,
But I've learned to not do that so much.
I think I found that you know I found that I liked it. And I think that's what scared me. I think it was like looking in on it, like not only was I using it as a tool, but I liked to be angry. I liked just like kind of, oh, I'm so angry at this. And I could hold on to it if I wanted to and just remain angry. And I kind of liked it. I liked that state of being. And it's bad. It's not good for you. I mean, you're talking blood pressure, all your, systems are up in your body, but just damage to your soul as well. You know. So, Dan, Ecclesiastes 7:9.
Ecclesiastes, do not be eager in your spirit to be angry, for anger resides in the heart of fools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's a pretty that's a pretty poignant verse there. Don't want to be a fool, and we know. I mean, you're faced with when you're in the midst of being angry or something. You're not accurate. You're not able to function logically. I mean, some people can to a certain degree, but for the most part, the madder you are, the more logic is out the window. And it's just this rage thing. And I think if we're looking at like varying degrees, I think there are varying degrees of human existence. I think the highest degree of human existence is love, is like agape, selfless love, and I would say the absolute bottom of it is going to be lust, and then one step above that is going to be anger, is going to be rage. It's just caveman bashing stuff. I mean that's what you're tapping into, and so it's all in us. We have to control it. But really we need to we need to give that stuff to God because things are going to set us up, and we need to just have the mindfulness to think about God's will and the fact that vengeance is His, whatever's going on. There's tons of verses all over Jesus' teachings about that, about how to act in situations like that. So, so let me ask you fellas, how did Samson use anger in this passage we read, and what ultimately was the result? I would say he used it less as a tool and more as like I don't know, a battering ram. I mean, we saw how like it took time to get this response together. So it couldn't have, it wasn't like he just, did like a WWF wrestling move on the father in the doorway of the house and ran off into the night. Like he was like, okay, I got you. It's about to get violent. I'm going to go, collect foxes and set them loose in your fields, burn everything down. Um,
Yeah, how
so
did you come up with that? It's still I'm still wondering. But anyway, okay, sorry.
could I don't know. Pretty wild, pretty wild. But the result, I think, the end result was that just more bad blood between Samson and the Philistines. I mean, it's every single time this escalates, every time there's back and forth, they want to do something. It's a response to a response to a response to a response. And this is a pretty big deal. I mean, you burned all their fields, the olive oil groves. I mean, these are possibly century old trees that have been, passed down through generations in some of these groves, all just smoked by some guy who got insulted about a wife that he basically told off anyway. I mean, it's a really wild story, but I don't think that the result was. The question is this what God wanted? And this is this whole line that Samson has been walking, is that he is under the vow. He's going out and disobeying the vow. He's really riding the line here, but ultimately, is God going to see the people of Israel delivered from the hands of the Philistines, which is really his purpose of being a judge? Is that going to ultimately be the result? We don't know yet, not yet.
You wonder about these things because it says in the beginning of the story of Samson that God meant these things for his own purposes.
Right.
So, like, is this a way you should not behave, but it was okay for him, or was it still not okay for him, but it's what God knew was going to happen because of his personality? A lot of questions in there.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
think it's I think it's because God wanted to use Samson as an example of how not to do things.
Yeah,
Because,
there's that too.
like you were saying earlier, anger is with all of us. We all have to control it. We all have to control our response to anger because when you are angry, yes, you have an adrenaline surge that gives you strength, but it also weakens the mind, weakens the logic behind your actions.
right.
So backing up, who is responsible for our actions? We are. Anything we do, we are responsible for. So if you lose the logic behind your actions, your anger, then it does not, it more likely does not result in positive outcomes.
Yeah. Totally agree with that. So why do strong men use anger as a tool for revenge or control of a situation or a person or something? Is it just because it's the easy thing? It's not all strong men, but at the same time, I think that all men are strong to some degree. That's how God put us together. There's varying degrees of everything, but I think in every man's mind, he sees himself as a strong man. So why do strong men do this?
Because
I
they're
mean,
bad. I don't know.
sinful flesh. I mean, that's one thing. It's unrighteous for sure. I think it's like I said. I think it's that favorite tool syndrome. I think it's just you find yourself. It's training your risk reward centers in your brain. You get through some situation totally unrelated in your life and get through it through anger, and that just trains you that well, this is the way. This is the easy button. I just get really angry at stuff, and then things happen. So I'll just keep using that. But at the same time, we can destroy, absolutely, utterly destroy relationships around us doing that.
I think if you are a strong man, if you are bigger than most people, no one usually stands up and says, "Hey, don't act that way." As a Christian, I found many Christians will do that, and it's what they helped me to train my anger when I was younger. Um, but when I first became a Christian, I should say I wasn't that young. But yeah, it's it, I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
All right. Well, So these two verses we did, Ephesians 4 and James 1:19 to 20. What? So that's in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down in your anger. Do not give the devil a foothold. And everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. What do these verses teach us about handling our anger in a godly way? I
The
think.
first thing,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
The first thing that we need to remember is that we are not our own.
Yeah.
We are God's. We are supposed to be God's. We are supposed to do the things that God would be pleased of. And if we remember that, we can channel our anger towards the righteousness aspects. When Jesus was in the temple and had his episode with the money changers, first off, the money changers weren't supposed to be in the temple.
Right.
So
Hmm.
if we act in accordance with God's will, that strengthens our resolve. It also controls our anger. Because if God is in control, it smothers our anger. It forces us to think logically. Not saying emotion is no part of it all. Don't get me wrong. But it controls what we're doing. Responsibility is still there. Liability is enforced. And we have to think that this is what God wants us to do. And that also backs us away from anger. It tempers us. It allows us to give a gentle response, to turn away anger. Stay away from the harsh words. It allows us to think and concentrate on what we actually should respond to that upsets us.
It's
And
hard.
hopefully resolve the problem versus stirring up
Mhm.
the situation to cause more problems.
It's hard to be logical and emotional from it at the same time. And it's actually a study that was done some years ago. Our brains are different than a woman's brain. Well, they can always be in touch with their emotions. We can't. We're either going to be logical or emotional. So the answer to being angry is to think logically. But if you're angry and you're emotional about something, it's hard to get to there. You know,
Agreed.
you have to train yourself to step back and view things on a more in a more logical way and think through what the issue is.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I get out of those verses is that God understands that we're going to get angry. There's no way around it. And that grace is built into his relationship with us. But also that he expects us to let go. That if we get angry, he expects us to be able to let go of it. Definitely cannot be holding a grudge. And these things are, you can't be a sneaky Pete. You can't come from the blind side later on. You've got to forgive everybody. I mean, if anybody deserves righteous anger, it's us from God. So who are we to be throwing this stuff around?
That's true.
But I don't know. But at the same time, in James 1. I mean, quick to listen. I think that's, because listening is a passive thing. So it's not, like, I'm going to run over here and listen really hard. It's not like so how are you going to be quick to listen? But like, it's just a state of mind. It's just, it's self-control, and it's listening first and processing things calmly, and that it takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes, mindfulness to do it. But I think that's what God expects of us, agree, and again, it's going to happen. Something is going to push your button, but like, recognize in yourself if you are picking this up as a tool and using it to get through certain things in your life, and understand that it's going to hurt you, and it's going to hurt the people you love, and what we need to do is lean on the wisdom of God that's right here in the Word, and apply that to our lives and move forward like that.
You know what? This has really made me angry. No, I'm just kidding.
You just like flip the table over. All right. Application. I would like to, us and anybody who happens to watch this video on YouTube, to identify one trigger for their anger this week. Something, anything that's setting you off, anything that usually sets you off, or you hopefully you see it before, but I want you to think beforehand, so preemptively understand that it's going to happen. Something is going to trigger your anger this week, and put a seed in your mind right now to pause, to stop, to see it coming, to stop, and to pray, and to respond instead of react. The reaction is where the anger is going to come in. You can respond calmly and logically to some kind of aggravating stimuli, but a reaction is typically going to be snappier and, full of anger, So put that in your head now. Think about it, that, it's going to happen. Something in the next 7 days is going to make you upsetty spaghetti. Okay, and get something in there now. Like, okay, when that happens, I'm expecting it. I'm going to pause. I'm going to pray, and I'm going to respond instead of react. Okay. Our concentration verse this week. I want everybody to just kind of read through Ephesians 4, 26 and 27. Where Paul is saying, "In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. Do not give the devil a foothold." So write that one down. Read through that a couple times this week if you think about it, and just kind of let that one soak in. I think that's really important. All right. Anybody else have anything? Any nuggets of wisdom you want to lay on us?
Yeah.
Great. All right, let's close in prayer, boys.
How about this? How about just chill, dude?
Just chill. Sometimes you just can't chill.
Yeah.
All right. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for our lives and for the beauty and glory of your creation. We thank you for this time of study and fellowship. And we thank you most of all for your Son, Jesus, and the path of salvation laid out by his sacrifice on the cross. God, we know that you are just in your anger against unrighteousness, and that we are just unrighteous in our own. I doubt there is a man on earth who has not damaged their own life in some way through a quick temper. So, Father, we thank you for your infinite patience with us, your children, even as we rebel and sin against your perfect will. Lord, we ask you to bless us through your Spirit with the fruits of self-control and wisdom, that we may bring forth more love, patience, and understanding into the world. We ask for soft hearts and cool minds to prevail, and for healing in our relationships that we may have harmed in anger. So, Lord, please continue to bless and guide our congregation. Watch over our leaders and their families and keep them out of the schemes of the enemy. and deliver us all safely home tonight, and help us every day to be better men and better Christians. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, thanks, Brendan.
No, thank you.